We started. We started at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 or 6 weeks. We go until about 10:30, 11:30.
They were all, they were very similar.
Oh, yeah.
Waiting, you shut up, supposed to be wrong.
Sometimes too.
Should have been.
Usually not the meeting, it's usually closed session. So, yeah.
Just like.
Okay.
I'll tell you more about it. The building.
But I attend the meetings.
That-
Oh, yeah. I live in Ashburn Village. We have over 4,000 housing units. She has to tell us. That's so.
Are you ready?
Yes,
You're like 40.
yeah, we elected it. Elected board members and stuff. I agree on this commission now. Many
Years, I was the president, but it's.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Is the evening meeting for MBRC for December. Welcome to everyone. Hope you had a great evening. We're going to start by having our roll call, if you would. Mr. Piper, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Commissioner Alcorn, Commissioner Angry, Commissioner Bailey,
Here.
Commissioner Bierman, Commissioner Bodie, Commissioner Carrera,
Here.
Commissioner Chapman, Commissioner Colbert, Commissioner Cummings, Commissioner DeFerranti, Commissioner Fields,
Yeah.
Commissioner Glass,
Here.
Commissioner Green, Commissioner Hardy,
Here.
Commissioner Harity, Commissioner Hudson,
Here.
Commissioner Karantonis, Commissioner LeBlanc, Commissioner Lusk, Commissioner Palchik, Commissioner Reed,
Present in substitution for her, I am the alternate for the city of Fairfax. My name is Tom Peterson. I'm council member.
okay? Thank you for being here. It's not clear. We would have to look to see if alternates are possible. You're certainly welcome to sit here and participate. I'm not sure if you're supposed to vote, and it may not matter tonight, but if it does, we will have to look that up.
Just let me know. I
Okay.
was asked by Catherine to join and
Okay.
participate.
We appreciate you coming.
Thank you. I will check the bylaws during our presentation, our next presentation. Okay, Commissioner Sains and Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Madam Vice Chair, quorum is present.
Absolutely great. With the commissioner's permission, what I'd like to do is, we do have our audit report to be presented this evening. And so in respect of the gentleman that's going to present to us, we're going to have him come now and do the presentation so that we have any feedback that or questions that we might have, but we wanted him to get here safe and get home safely. Absolutely.
So we are on resolution P 2612 under item 4, the acceptance of the draft audit report. I want to thank our auditors. Mike Moran is the lead auditor who's with us tonight. And also thank very much all of our MBRC staff. I don't want to steal Mike's thunder, but spoiler, it's all good. And that's only because of the hard work of our staff, especially Linda and Gina. But all of our staff are really involved in the success of our finances because of the very complicated nature of our programs, our involvement with grants, all of the reports that have to be maintained. And so really everybody on the team is responsible for a clean audit. I also want to give a lot of credit to my predecessor, Bob Lazaro, who is responsible for pretty much all of the substance of the organization that is during the time period covered by the report. I just get to come in after that and present you with a clean audit report. So with that said, I will turn it over to Mike. Thank you very much. This is the clicker.
It's up already.
Yeah. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight to present the financial report for the Northern Virginia Regional Commission for the year ended June 30th, 2025.
Let's do a couple things.
Oh, you go ahead. For tonight's presentation, I'm going to keep it at a higher level. I met in the meeting before this with the executive committee, and we went over the report in detail. So we basically took the report itself, started in the front, worked our way towards the back. So for this presentation, I'm going to keep it at that higher level as I mentioned and kind of just hit some of those highlights for you. No worries.
Good.
Yep, so I'll start with the engagement summary. I'll move on to the items that go along with the audit report itself. It's just one item this year. It's our governance letter. I'll go over the audit results and then I'll talk about a few financial report highlights. So starting with the engagement summary. You engaged as a performer of financial statement audit for the year ended June 30th, 2025. This audit was subject to generally accepted auditing standards in the US. The standards for financial audits contained in the government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General, the provisions of uniform guidance. So that's your single audit. Just a little bit about our process. We come on site for a few days. I bring myself and a small army with me. We torture staff to get everything we need as much as possible so that we can try to finish up as quickly as we can and as efficiently as we can. Staff here is very helpful and get back to us right away, no matter if they're across the country or just down the office. So it's a great collaborative effort to get this audit done. So after our on-site field work, the work is reviewed. It's reviewed by myself, and then it goes through our QC department. So it goes through a couple set of eyes before that final audit report is issued to the commission. Next, the audit results. Within the audit report itself, there's 3 auditor type reports. What gives it away is our header on the top. The first one is the independent auditor's report. And so this is our opinion, our report on the numbers included within the financial report. I'm happy to let you know for the year ended June 30th, 2025, we had an unmodified opinion, which is a good, clean opinion and exactly what you're looking for on the numbers. The second auditor type report is our report on internal control over financial reporting and non-compliance and other matters. Happy to let you know for the year ended June 30th, 2025, we did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies over internal controls in the reporting process or any compliance related issues. So another good opinion, exactly what you're looking for. And then the third and final auditor type report is our report on compliance for each major program and on internal control over compliance. So this is our single audit opinion. And to complete the clean sweep, we did not identify any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in that section as well, in that auditor's type report opinion. So for the single audit this year, we did test the housing opportunities for persons with AIDS for the year ended June 30th, 2025. Along with the final report itself, there will be a governance letter. So this is just an example of what the top looks like. And this is a letter from us directly to you, council. And in this letter, it just, we'll talk about anything of importance that we want to make sure that we're communicating to you. So if any new accounting pronouncements, so for example, this year there was a new one in GASB 101 that was implemented. It'll talk about any of the significant accounting estimates used by the commission in financial reporting. If there was any difficulties in performing the audit, any corrected or uncorrected statements, there wasn't any disagreements with management, there was none. Any audit findings or issues, or if we had to consult other CPAs or anything along these lines that we would like to communicate to you directly would be in that letter. So it's a pretty standard letter overall this year, and that comes along with that final report. There is one other item that would be issued separately from the report if we had any, and that's our management comments and recommendations. So these would be items that are minor in nature and don't rise to the level of material weakness or significant deficiency. We did not have any of those identified for the year ended June 30th, 2025 either. Moving on to the financial report highlights, starting on your statement of net position. So this is your balance sheet. The total net position at June 30th, 2025 was $2,384,511. And then if you were to flip, if you were to look at the report and you were to flip over to your income statement, your statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in that position, the total revenues for the year ended June 30th, 2025 was $10,167,193. Total expenses was $10,037,137. And then increase or net income for the year ended June 30th, 2025 of $182,305. All right. On this slide here is a chart of the historical net position of the commission for the last 5 years, including FY25. And I just really put this in the slide so to give you some historical context of the net position of Northern Virginia Regional Commission and kind of just visualize it. Not going to talk about too much other than that, but hopefully you'll have this for your records and can always go back on it as well. And then lastly, just kind of want to talk about when you get a chance to look at the final audit report or the draft audit report, I want to point out a few sections that I think are helpful to go back and look at. So the management discussion analysis on pages 4 to 8, that'll give you that high level overview of the fiscal year and kind of a good summary of how the year went. And it'll also point you in the direction of a few important items in the report as well. The statement of the fiduciary net position and changes in fiduciary net position, that'll include your Go Virginia activity. The notes to the financial statements on pages 14 through 24, those are there to enhance your understanding of those exhibits that are in the financials. It'll give you more background on it, more detail. It'll talk about how it's recorded or what's in it. So those are a good place to go for additional detail. The budget first actual, so your schedule of resources, appropriation, and expenditures, that can be found on page 25. And your schedule of expenditures of federal awards can be found on page 37. I know that's a brief overview and doesn't really do it justice on how long these audits take to complete. But if you have any questions for me, or if you have questions once I leave, feel free to reach out to me. I'm more than happy to answer.
I'd like to entertain any questions from the floor from the commissioners. Are there any? Questions? Okay.
I could add 3 quick comments. First, I want to underscore, as Mike pointed out, that the program selected for a deep dive in this audit was our Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS program, or HOPWA. So I want to give a special shout out to our Human Services team, Carol, Tylee, Sadiksha, Mark, and especially Rashmi, who is the whiz behind all of the numbers and make sure that all of those numbers add up. So thank you especially to that team. The resolution tonight is to accept the draft audit report, and that will include substitution that we gave you in a separate handout. There was some outdated language that was erroneously included in the one that's in your big packet. So please consider this page to be part of that draft report. And if you accept the draft report, then the auditors will produce a final report that will also include any corrections to typographical or clerical errors. The last note is that our bylaws do provide for alternates for commissioners who cannot attend meetings. So thank you very much for being here, Councilmember Peterson or Acting Commissioner Peterson, and please feel free to vote on Resolution P2612. We recommend adoption.
So with that said and done, we really appreciate all the hard work that has been put forth to have a very successful audit for us for 2025, and to Craig and the team. You rock. How about that?
Thank you.
Yes. With that, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded appropriately. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? We accept the audit as presented. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and be safe going home.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and again, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So we're going to move into the next portion of our agenda. This presentation by and a briefing that we need to receive on the state of our economy from Jill Caniff, our senior regional demographer, and Keith Walters, assistant director of the George Mason University Center for Regional Analysis. Are you ready? Very good. Thank you so much. This will include details and updates from the US DC metropolitan area and the Northern Virginia economies, and the impacts from changes to the federal government in our workforce. So we appreciate you coming this evening. Thank you so much. Please enlighten us.
Just pull up the presentation.
Okay.
Give me just a second.
Following the presentation, we would welcome discussion. If there are any items you think we should act on at the staff level or at the commission level or at the locality level on the basis of what you're about to see.
Trying to get yours. Sorry about that. There we go. There we are.
First.
So thank you all for having Keith Waters and I here tonight. Keith is with George Mason University Center for Regional Analysis and is the Assistant Director. And he does a lot of deep economic analysis of the region. That would be the Washington DC region compared to the nation, as well as Northern Virginia and other parts of the region. So I've asked him to be here to give you all an update. We had scheduled this presentation back in the summer to be held at this time, expecting all the numbers to have been in by now for the resignations and for pretty much the resignations. But as you all know, those numbers are delayed. September is coming out next week for the region and for the metropolitan region as well. And we will post that data, I will, on our website. But for now, most of the data we have tonight is up through August. Unfortunately, we couldn't give you any more recent data, but Keith can certainly fill you in on the federal impacts and how it's affecting our region, and then we can have the discussion on that. So I will turn it over to Keith, and then after him, I will just do a few more things.
Clicker.
It may be easier to use the down arrows.
So I will go through this. There's 3 sections of the presentation. We'll start with the US just to situate ourselves. Then we'll go into the DC area and then Northern Virginia. And we'll just kind of go into that. All right, so starting with the US, it's okay. I'm gonna minimize these folks so you guys can all see. The broadest point that I'd like to make to start is that the US economic output has been cruising along relatively well. So if you take out actually the pandemic quarters, to an extent, it's kind of hard to see the impact of the pandemic anymore. It did slow down month over year in the first quarter of 2025, but then rebounded in the second. We're still waiting for some data after that. But broadly speaking, the US continues to expand, even in light of Federal Reserve raising interest rates starting in 2022. So it's been quite some time of the interest rate hikes, and the US economy has continued to expand. If we look at one of the first half of the Federal Reserve's mandate, which is full employment, US payroll jobs have been generally slowing over the past, basically since after sort of the rebound off the pandemic. The job growth leading up to the pandemic was incredibly stable. We've now slowed pretty dramatically, largely stalled. There's some questions around these job creation numbers. Jerome Powell yesterday commented that he thinks the BLS might be overestimating this by 60,000 month over year. But the broadest notion that you'll see is we're still down kind of where we should have been relative to trend, and that's even before the slowing. The full employment mandate side of the Federal Reserve is unfortunately a little under pressure as unemployment starts to rise. That's the darker green in that top chart. So unemployment was currently at 4.4% in September, and it is rising faster than it has been previously. This also comes in wake of the labor force participation rate steadily declining over the last year and a half or so, even after it rebounded in the wake of the pandemic when a lot of people left the labor force, just sort of due to being uncomfortable being out and about in public. The other side of the Federal Reserve's mandate is stable prices. And so this is month over year change in the stuff that we all buy. And currently it's running at about 3%. This is the change, not the total level. Everything is more expensive than it was, but it's getting more expensive at a slower rate than it had been immediately following the pandemic. But the problem with the 3% is that it's a full percentage point above the Federal Reserve's target rate of about 2%. So both the only two things that the Federal Reserve really is supposed to be paying attention to is stable prices and full employment, and both of them are rising faster than they should be. And so the Federal Reserve needs to choose which one they would like to prioritize. And they just yesterday lowered the federal funds rate, which is over here on the left, down to 3.5 to 3.25% for the target rate. That really impacts our region quite a bit because federal funds rate impacts a bunch of different things, but most directly the 30-year fixed mortgage. And so the discussion coming out of the Federal Reserve meeting yesterday was likely that the Federal Reserve may lower the interest rate one more time next year, but is potentially done. Which is to say the 30-year fixed rate mortgage is probably not going to change very much throughout the course of the next year because the federal funds rate is going to stay relatively stable. Our region is relatively expensive to live in. And so, you could have potentially a dual income household with no children could have bought an $800 million home at a 3% mortgage rate, but they can't do so at 6%. So it becomes more difficult for folks to live in the greater Washington area and Northern Virginia in particular. Moving into the Washington region economy, the DC economy has been underperforming the US since Budget Control Act and Sequester in 2011. And recently, most of the economic output growth can be attributed to data centers in Loudoun. We have been underperforming quite some time, basically just as the federal government has slowed its expansion in the DC region. This obviously has come to sort of a boiling point this year with the change in the federal administration. Annual job change in the entire DC MSA slipped negative in July. It was down 9,000 month over year between August 2024 and August 2025. The September data actually are available for our metro. You can check that out. They did become available. Sometimes it's a little bizarre just because of DC, so our data tend to anyway. The September data did come out. They continue to be negative. So this trend is continuing. This has not changed. And if we break this down by jurisdiction, the district has been negative effectively since the federal administration shifted and Trump came into his second term, effectively immediately turned negative in the district. Suburban Maryland stalled almost effectively immediately, expanded a little bit throughout summer. A lot of this is actually local government and state government. So the mix is a little bit different there. And then Northern Virginia took a little bit longer to slow, but then did actually slow into summer. And between August 24 and August 2025 was down 300 people. So effectively within a sampling error. But the trend is pretty clear that even Northern Virginia's economy is starting to slow. And this impacts our two most important industrial sectors, which are the professional and business services sector, which is down 19,000 jobs month over year in the entire DC metro area, which includes suburban Maryland and the district. These are largely government contractors and such. Federal government is contracting extremely sharply. Between August 2024 and August 2025, the region lost 21,000 federal jobs. This accelerated just a touch into September at negative 22,000 jobs. And as Jill mentioned, we were supposed to have data for October already, but because the federal government was shut down for the entirety of October, they were not calling people to ask how many jobs there were. So we do not know how many people took the fork in the road. Those data were supposed to have been released, but they are not, which is to say this number undoubtedly gets worse into October. And we don't know how bad it became, and we will get the November numbers, which will be our first read on it, I believe January 7th. They've delayed things a little bit and the dates keep moving. But nonetheless, this undoubtedly gets substantially worse into the remainder of this year. And with that, so as the region's as the region's employment base is starting to contract, we are starting to see unemployment rate rise in the DC metro area. Suburban Maryland is actually has risen to the level, unemployment rate has risen to the level of the US in suburban Maryland, which, setting aside a couple odd months during the pandemic, has not happened in the previous 15 years. So it's hitting suburban Maryland extremely hard, even up until the fork in the road folks took their buyout packages. Northern Virginia is also recording a rise in unemployment rates, which I believe Jill will talk about more in a little bit. Delving directly into Northern Virginia, unfortunately, and this is something that, unfortunately, this is also occurring in Northern Virginia, which has historically been the powerhouse sub-region of the DC metro area. Professional and business services is down a little over 10,000 between August 2024 and August 2025. This continued into September. It's slowed just a touch, but kind of within sampling error. Federal government in Northern Virginia is also slowing. Skip a slide. Federal government in Northern Virginia is also contracting pretty sharply. It was down 6,600 between August 2024 and August 2025, and is effectively the same as it was going back to 2010. So we have lost, federal government in Northern Virginia has kind of bounced around for the last 15 years, but nonetheless, we're basically back to where we were in January 2010. This is one of the more interesting slides that I came across for this particular presentation. This is the labor force in Northern Virginia. And this was actually not something on my radar until I was preparing for this, is that the labor force in Northern Virginia has started to contract. Between August 24 and 25, the labor force contracted by about 26,000 workers. And so this is a household survey. So this calls households and says, are you in the labor force? You're not in the labor force. And it did start to contract. And this is not something, one that I was anticipating to happen maybe to this extent, but also just generally speaking, this is something that was not on my radar. If we look across the river at suburban Maryland, you can see it a little bit on this. Well, you can see the dark bars on this chart, the red bars in 2020. This happens in suburban Maryland, but then suburban Maryland stayed flat through present day. So suburban Maryland's labor force contracted by about 50,000 workers. This is, for the most part, I'm just talking actually about Montgomery County and Frederick County. But suburban Maryland's labor force did not grow after the COVID contraction, and has been stagnant for the last 5 years. Northern Virginia did not experience that. It actually did increase following the pandemic, but has since started to contract with the recent weakness in the labor market. Switching gears, just a couple more slides. The weakness that we're seeing in the labor market is starting to impact other parts of the economy. Inventory of for sale homes in Northern Virginia has started to rise. And what you see is typically you see this seasonal trend where during the selling season, the inventory rises and then it contracts as people pull their houses off over the winter. We don't see that contraction right now. So the most recent data is effectively flat. And in the November number, it's down a little bit. It's down to about 2,042 units at the end of November in the NVAR region, which is an increase in inventory of about 45%. So it is a pretty substantial percentage increase, but that being said, we're kind of back to 2019 levels. So in level terms, it's not particularly like dire. And in some ways, it's a little bit healthier, more balanced market as buyers have more time to shop for things that they really care about. But nonetheless, the weakness is there. Home sales, which had been holding up incredibly strong. So these are back in the days prior to the pandemic. If you put something on the market prior to the pandemic, you're waiving contingencies and so forth, because things were selling incredibly fast. And so you get 13, 14 offers, days on market was 3. Home sales actually have started to slow. Okay, this is part of that. This is another way of saying there continues to be weakness. There's starting to be weakness in the housing market. And we're seeing that start to show up in median sales price. What you see kind of towards the end here is these robust month over year percent changes in your house. So some of you may track your Zillow's estimate. That's probably stalled out this year and stayed relatively flat. The November numbers are in line with that October number, so 5.7% between November 24 and November 2025. So the November number was still relatively good, but it's on a smaller number of sales. So the winter numbers tend to be a little bit more bouncy, but you can definitely see the trend through 2025 as it's trending towards 0. We actually are about to release a forecast for the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors. Us and the crew at the NVAR that we work with are going to predict median sales price, depending on where you are, somewhere between 1% and 3% increase over the next year. The big change is going to be that inventory. Okay, so we are seeing softening in the region's housing market, which carries into the multifamily market. So in the multifamily housing, we are also seeing that weakness. Vacancies are starting to increase. We're up to 6.6%, which isn't, particularly alarming by its in and of itself, but nonetheless, it has been climbing pretty steadily throughout 2025. So we are seeing the same weakening of the housing market in the multifamily that we're seeing in the for sale. And along with the rising vacancy rates, landlords are responding by lowering rents, offering concessions. This is effective rent per unit. So we are starting to see concessions regarding rent. So rents are starting to come down a little bit. And finally, I will end on one moment of good news. We will see. I was actually at a CoStar event yesterday that was providing some forecasts for the DC metro area. If you squint hard enough, and I'm starting to believe that this may be true. If you squint hard enough, we are seeing office vacancies potentially peak. So office vacancies in the Northern Virginia region have been rising since post-COVID. As people are working from home, offices are using less space. There's like flex desks and all this stuff. This potentially has peaked. The CoStar folks that I was listening to yesterday think that this might rise a little bit more in 2026, but nationally office vacancies have probably peaked and are kind of found some version of an equilibrium and are going to come back down. Northern Virginia may tick up a little bit more, but I'm starting to suspect that may be a peak. But we'll certainly need another couple quarters before we believe that to be true. On the flip side, you can see office rents are starting to rise a little bit faster, which would be suggestive of that notion of office vacancy weakness might have kind of peaked at the moment. So with that, I will say thank you and either pass it off to Jill or open up.
Yeah, I'll do my few slides and then we can take questions after that. I only had a few. So just to add one technical detail, the information you just heard from Keith, for Northern Virginia, represented a broader area than what MVRC represents. Northern Virginia was the Northern Virginia portion of the metropolitan area. So that included things like Stafford, Fredericksburg, Fauquier. Whereas the data I'm about to show you just gives you the NVRC region specifically. What you're seeing here is the unemployment continued claims. Everybody's been wondering pretty much what's happened with the resignations since, but at the end of September is when the official resignations finished and people left the workforce that took the resignation. And then the shutdown happened pretty much at the same time. So there will be no way to really know in our region how much of the rise that happened at the beginning of October was due to the resignations versus the shutdown in our unemployment. But certainly, as you see here, during the since the shutdown happened and the resignations happened, the whole region really increased greatly on their continued claims. And then it has dropped back, and it this doesn't show last week's data, but last week showed it continuing to drop in all of the areas, all of the states. DC is now, as of last week, less than the pre-shutdown in the continued claims. Maryland and Virginia are still slightly above the pre-shutdown numbers. But the fact that it dropped so quickly, you can read into that likely means that many of the people that filed the claims were probably not the resignation people, but because many of those were retirees. And retirees would not be doing the claims. Whereas instead, if you were on furlough, you were allowed to file for the unemployment claims, and we had a steep rise, as you see from that. And then once the shutdown ended, you saw a steep drop. So likely that is because a lot of people were struggling on furlough that took the claims. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the claim system, you do have to back pay all the claims you had during the furlough once you go back to work. So they only had that pretty much as a temporary loan, that funding. And then on the unemployment rate for the NVRC region versus what Keith presented, we have the same unemployment numbers. It's 3.7%. And our annual change in the unemployment is up from 2.9%. So that was a 0.8 percentage point difference since last year. So certainly large impacts on our region from the federal impacts for sure. And the last thing I'll show is the unemployed persons. That's really striking because we're at 54,000 unemployed as of August in our NVRC region. That's an increase of 26%. Or 11,000 people unemployed since the same time last year. So that's the only additional information I wanted to provide that on top of what Keith presented to you. So we'll now take questions. And actually one more thing before I do that, just if you want to stay on top of this information that I just showed, a reminder that you can go to the Northern Virginia Region dashboard, and like Keith said, September for the region came out for the metro region, but next week the county numbers are coming out. So this will be updated with September next week on Wednesday. So you can always check back here. So thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for your presentation. Are there any questions for Keith? Yes, please.
I have a question.
Yes.
So the question I have is, and I appreciate the presentation, is the office vacancy. What is the impact that the conversions of residential are having? Is that helping with the peak or bringing the percentage down? Because I know some of the localities are adopting office to residential conversions in existing buildings.
I don't track that directly, but they did, I'm not gonna give you exact numbers, but, two things that I always think about when we're talking about about the office conversions is a couple of years ago, I think it was the case that it was like CBRE or somebody did, an evaluation of offices and estimated that it was like 10% could be converted. And the problem is office buildings have really deep cores. So you have to have windows to have a residential building. So if the office building is too deep without windows, you really like can't convert it. Apparently, New York City's changed some policies so that you can do it a little bit. So the subset of office buildings that you could convert is relatively small. And I really hesitate to say this, but I'm gonna tell you anyway, so please don't hold me against it if I get it wrong. I saw a presentation yesterday at CoStar, and my recollection from that was that a lot of it, most of the basically demolitions had a much bigger impact. So you're taking down older buildings that had vacancy rates. So it wasn't necessarily conversions. It was more like, we're gonna knock this whole building down. So that's taking that building out of the housing, out of the building stock, then basically pulls down your vacancy rate. Sorry if that wasn't ultra satisfying.
So we begin to actually measure that.
Mhm.
Arlington has taken at least almost 3 or more than 3%. The vacancy rate down by being very successful, more than we ever expected, by being very successful with office to residential, so obsolete office to residential conversion. That has been, I mean, we call it the commercial resilience initiative. And I can tell you, it is, I mean, we have now 4 board meetings, 4 months in a row that we entitle new residential conversion. The key to that is, of course, a policy thing. It is very fast and very easy to do that right now. It's no comparison to anything comparable in normal entitlement, what we call the 4.1 process. But you are absolutely right. We have a huge, still a significant amount of completely obsolete buildings, either because they are less than Class C, etc. One effect that I don't know how to evaluate is the fact that we have basically very little new investment in offices. So what I'm missing here in the picture is we know that productivity, for example, is increasing in the United States, as is driving GDP higher. But I don't see Northern Virginia as how is net investment doing? Do we see new buildings even built, or do we see industries investing money here? So I see you talk about the labor force contracting, but that doesn't mean that net investment is not coming in. That's what I'm asking.
Was that a question?
Yeah.
I mean, I want to see, unemployment is rising, labor force is contracting, all this is bad news. GDP, though, is it contracting as well on the regional level?
No, it's
And is okay, so that's better
It's-
news.
well,
So is investment bending? Do we see still the region attracting investment?
so this kind of goes, I think your question is pretty well tied up into this. So in the bottom of here, there's this little
Mhm.
most of the growth in economic output can be attributed to data centers just in Loudoun.
Right.
So the investment in the region that is expanding the economy instead of just kind of keeping it somewhat stable is for the most part data centers. That's the one thing that's enlarging our economy.
But, so what would be otherwise be the so one of the discussions that we're having, on the national level right now is that that enormous investment in AI facilities, et cetera, is driving a very big part of the growth of the GDP right now. Some
That's-
economists talk about 90% or so in the last semester, in the last 6 months. So the underlying narrative there is that we used to have a better mix, and this used to be, vibrant and growing investment in other sectors from, retail, transportation, et cetera. And we see a weakness there. This is compensated by AI investment, but it is not anymore a diverse economic picture. It's a picture that depends pretty much on the growth of one sector.
So I would say that, yeah, I mean, broadly, so yes, you're broadly speaking, right. What you'll notice about this chart is that it only goes up to 2023. So economic output data at the county level or metro level are far more delayed than any other types of data. Some of the county level data is actually new within the past 5 to 10 years. It's relatively new. So they're pretty delayed. But when you look at the federal procurement data, which I didn't put a slide in here, federal procurement data, that rose dramatically during Trump's first term. So actually what we saw in the region, federal procurement spending increased substantially between 2016 and 2019. It continued to rise during the Biden administration at actually a somewhat slower pace. I suspect it will stall out during Trump 2.0. So federal procurement with all of the contracting cuts, which even George Mason was affected. I was personally affected. I had a project that I was working on get cut. I submitted a proposal to a agency that no longer exists. So federal contracting dollars are going to be down. Part of the reason I've stopped showing those is because they're delayed 90 days. The agencies have 90 days to submit the data to USA Spending, but then they change dramatically. So this is a really long-winded way of saying I view the data center investment as propping up the region at the moment. At the same time that the federal government is pulling back. Okay, so what we're getting is this shrinking of the thing that we've been reliant on for so long, which is federal government in one way, shape, or form. And it is shifting a little bit more towards that data center. And I don't have it, but if you dig through I put out a monthly report called Economy Watch. And I don't have it here, but because the big story of the day is federal contracting. But to your point, there was a bump in summer of 2024 in Northern Virginia where you see construction. I was thinking contractors and I could not get off that word. You see a pretty stark rise in the number of construction workers in Northern Virginia. And I was asking around about it quite a bit of where did this come from? And actually it was at the HCCA event that I was telling.
Say it like it's a bad thing.
Well, no. It's that, look, when you give this much doom and gloom, eventually it just becomes my tone of voice. When I was talking at the HCCCA event, I'm not sure how many C's are in this. The rise coincided with the start of several data center projects. So even all of the construction jobs were related. You can see it explode. So data centers are absolutely propping up our region's economy at the moment.
Can I please ask what's
Sorry.
HC?
Heavy Construction Contractors Association is where I work.
Okay,
Right.
okay, yes.
Yeah, thank you for the.
I'm not sure this was satisfying.
It is. I mean,
Yeah.
just in general, I think that
I generally.
talking
Carey?
about
Mr.
the
Carey, no.
economic health.
Excuse me,
Oh,
you
yeah,
had a hand.
okay.
Please.
Thank you for the presentation. Obviously, our numbers, unemployment for Virginia have gone down. over these last few months, and of course, Northern Virginia as well. Are you seeing the same trend downstate with their unemployment numbers or spiking up, I should say?
I don't follow the rest of Virginia that much. I would suspect they're rising somewhat. I don't know if you follow it that much.
I don't follow it either.
I can get back
I'm
to
just
you on
curious
it.
because, obviously, as you mentioned, we're very heavily tied to government contracting and all the government folks that have been laid off, furloughed, and people just like, okay, the writing's on the wall. We start looking elsewhere. So just curious about downstate if they're having that.
I
same
mean,
effect.
I think just thinking about the rest of the state, I mean, like, so for example, the Hampton Roads area is also pretty heavily tied to federal government. So I could very much imagine their unemployment rate rising a bit. I know the folks in Norfolk are having similar issues with vacancy rate, getting folks back into the office. There's some nuances in their submarket, but the point is that if 2 of the 3 largest markets are pulling back, the rest of the state is gonna, probably pull back a little bit as well. I mean,
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Just,
When we talk to office to residential, I just wanted to make note that there is some creativity out there in the region. In Alexandria, we're very landlocked, so we've taken vacant office buildings and made them schools because of our growing school population. So I don't know if there is, if we look at how the data from office to residential, I don't know if they have an other category, but I know it's not just residential when they convert. Just my thoughts
I
on
will
that.
think about that. I have no
Okay.
thoughts on that.
All right.
okay. Okay. Mr. Peterson,
Thank you.
yes.
Do you track reemployment rates for people who are losing jobs? How many of them come back? And how long does that take?
So the one thing that you could track would be continuing claims. So continuing uninsurance claims. That is something that I don't track particularly closely. But generally speaking, this would have, eventually it'll show up. The unemployment rate would effectively track people being reemployed. So as these, just for example, with COVID, that was in, to just for gross characterization, that was largely retail and leisure and hospitality, right? So these are in-person jobs. This was also people who cleaned office buildings. When everybody hopped on Zoom, we didn't need as many people cleaning office buildings. So waste management folks got laid off in droves, along with leisure and hospitality and retail. As those people found other jobs and were then reemployed, that's where that number starts to come back down. And that's largely the case because this is a household survey. This is calling you as Tom Peterson, not as, an employee of something or or as an employer. So this would be just asking you, like, are you in the labor force? Do you have a job? And so if you became unemployed, you would have been in that spike. And if you found a new job, that would come back down. But continuing claims is another way of getting at that. The second answer that I'll give you, just to try to give a different answer, is actually, I think Jill's gonna, well, I don't want to put her on the spot like this, but at some point, her and I were talking, or potentially Bob Lazaro, of at the beginning of the year, what we saw was a lot of the job advertisements. Okay, so this is effectively like demand for labor in the area. And I don't remember what the numbers was, but it was like there were 100,000 jobs advertised in the region, and then following the Doge cuts, it sank to like 40,000. Okay, which is to say, people were having a harder time getting reemployed because employers were starting to reassess how many employees they might need. It didn't show up in the unemployment rates necessarily, But then this is part of the surprise of this chart, and and I will stop talking after this. This was to some extent the surprise for me in this chart, because I had not seen this really, is that when you pull out of the labor force, if you say, I'm just gonna retire, which is to say, I'm not going to be reemployed, you don't show up in that unemployment rate number, because now the BLS says, well, you're not even in the labor force. So we don't care if you get reemployed or not, you just decided to retire. And the fact that the labor force in Northern Virginia is starting to contract is a little surprising to me at the moment.
If I could just ask a very quick follow-up.
I'm sorry, did that answer your question, sir?
Well, with one exception,
Uh-huh.
and that is just to focus perhaps on federal job loss. And a question that comes up is whether at this point in time, the elapsed time to get back into a job, period, in the region for those people is now long,
Yeah.
very, very long. And they might drop out of the stats because it's so long, but it has implications, obvious implications in terms of home ownership, et cetera. Also, the change in terms of how they get back into the market, because if it's a relatively brief period of time, people can get re-credentialed at an educational institution, re-enter the job market. But if it's a longer period of time, it's a different ballgame altogether. So we're looking at something that's semi-permanent, long-term, but different in character and structure than past patterns where people will drop out, but they'll be able to get back in within some period of time that's different than it is now. So we're looking at a much longer term structural thing that's happening here. I just wondering if we have any way of gauging that.
I'll come back to that question in a second. Did you want to go to?
Yeah, that's why I was wondering that.
Yeah.
I wanted to come back to you so you can finish I cut you off because.
It's actually
Mr.
not
Sines.
very remote from the core here of Mr. Peterson's question. The consumption, private consumption, I have the strong impression, I mean, I work a lot with, serving retailers and small businesses, etc. We have, they bemoan that customers spend, if they're not spending less, they're spending differently, that amounts to less. So that there is a contraction in net aggregate in aggregate demand in the system right now. People are way more careful, so their sense of risk is very, very high. We have seen also, to the point of the reduction in the participation of the workforce, also net out migration that has been strong and consistent over time, and we don't know if it has peaked now yet. So what is the how do we measure, or do we include fluctuations in demand and spending, private spending in this case? Same for businesses, I mean, if the customers don't spend or spend less, then businesses spend less, and so forth.
So, and this hopefully also answers your question. The problem with this chart in particular, and this is something that I told Governor Youngkin earlier this year, is that we saw a federal employment contract at the exact same time that professional and business services contracting. This would have been the sector that the federal employees would shift into. Right? If you lose your federal job, you're like, oh, I'll just go get a consulting job. That's also contracting. So now what we're doing is flooding the market at the same time that we're also taking away prospects, because we're like, oh, well, ChatGPT can do that. So there's all sorts of issues related to that. That being said, so switching from that point to this, and I do find them heavily related, is that we're in this environment, and I don't have data at the moment to show it, so I'll speak in generalities. We're in a low hire environment nationally. It's a little less true locally just because of the impact of the federal government, but we're in this like low hire environment where if you have a job, things might be okay, but if you don't, you're having a really hard time getting one. And so this would lead to that more difficult reemployment. At the same time, the stock market the equity market has been absolutely soaring for the last couple of years. We've seen very strong returns, 15, 20, 24%, whatever it is over the last several years. So if you own equities, if you own the stock market, you're seeing really strong returns. And so this is generally being at the moment referred to as the K-shaped economy, where you either got laid off and things are incredibly difficult for you, or you are holding on to your jobs, your housing, your house price is going up, the general equity market is rising, and so you're a little bit more comfortable, which turns into a pretty severe shift in what people are spending. Some people are being way more cautious, where other people are spending a ridiculous amount of money, sort of to an extent, the have and have nots, and so the composition of what is being spent has changed pretty dramatically over the last couple of years. So yes to what you're saying, and that's just it's not really sort of I'm not sure if it's satisfactory, but that is absolutely my read on it. Is the composition is shifting? How is that changing total aggregate demand? To an extent, it might help our area just because we are still a wealthier area, even though we might have found kind of where, the peak of where we can be with the sort of job set that we have. It might be helping us for the moment, just because the equity market has been soaring. Where it goes from there, I'm unsure. So we'll see.
Okay.
Thank you.
So thank you all for your questions and your comments and the robust conversation. Keith, welcome back.
Always nice to see you.
Welcome. It's nice to see you as well, sir.
Always feel free to reach out. I'll probably leave after this.
Yeah. And Jill, thank you again as well for keeping us up to par on what's happening in the workforce. Thank you. And happy holidays to you.
Thank you.
We're going to move on with our agenda. The next that we have on the agenda are the adoption of our action items. Excuse my voice. And we have 3 resolutions, Resolution P609, 10, and 11. As you recall, we approved 12 earlier for our audit. So the first one is P2609, authorization to enter testimony before SCC concerning net metering. Craig, if you would, please.
Sure. So net metering has to do with the ability for consumers to return energy from apparatus like solar arrays on their property. And so essentially it helps consumers lower their energy costs by producing some of it themselves. We believe that Dominion Energy is looking to limit the ability for consumers to do that. And so that affects directly, most of our member localities have set goals to reduce greenhouse emissions. It affects directly the ability for localities to meet those goals. So Alexandria and Loudoun County have already joined an SEC case to speak against this proposal by Dominion. This resolution would authorize NVRC to join as well and to give testimony and file a letter to ask the commission to deny Dominion Energy's request.
So with questions,
I
please.
move to approve the resolution.
Thank you very much. Is there a second? Thank you very much.
That's a question. So
Are there any questions?
Yeah. It's
We're all tired.
submit a letter of support. So are we actually in opposition? of Dominion?
I think that means supporting the other localities that are joining the case. That was
Yeah.
probably not worded quite right.
So we are opposing Dominion's request.
Opposing Dominion, yes, yeah. And we are working with a technical consultant on a detailed letter and testimony. So what we actually submit will be quite buttoned up. The resolution is very high level.
Thank you, Letty. Great clarity. Any other questions before we move to the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? It is approved. The next item is Resolution 2610, continuing education and promotion of greater local solid waste management authority and the support of producer responsibility of materials. Craig, please.
Our member localities all participate in the Northern Virginia Waste Management Board, which adopts policy positions every year regarding waste management. You can see their policy position paper for this coming year following the resolution. this resolution authorizes NVRC staff to distribute the policy positions.
Any questions? Would like to adopt the resolution and get a motion?
So moved, Madam Vice Chair.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? It is adopted. And then the last one is P 62711, authorization to administer a grant on behalf of the AI Coalition Working Group. Craig, please.
Thank you. The Fairfax County Department of Economic Initiatives has convened a group of government, business, education leaders in the area of AI that are having informal conversations about how to best position the Northern Virginia region as a key player in AI. There are a lot of different ways you could interpret that statement. And so what the coalition has decided to do next is to hire somebody to write a landscape assessment to look at our region's strengths and opportunities, assets, challenges, et cetera, in this area, and then hold what we're tentatively calling an AI Action Summit, which would bring together some key stakeholders to decide what to do next in the areas identified in the assessment. Because the coalition is essentially just a bunch of people who meet on Zoom, it doesn't really have the ability to put out an RFP and award a contract to a consultant or an event organizer. And so this resolution would authorize NVRC to play that role, issue an RFP, award a contract, and manage the project in conjunction with the coalition itself. So many more details to come once we see what the proposals look like, but we do have a company that has agreed to fund up to $100,000 for this project or this pair of projects. And so there would be no cash cost to NVRC or even the rest of the coalition.
We like that, Craig. We like that. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'd like to adopt this resolution. May I get a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. It is approved. We appreciate you. And now we're moving to our executive director's report. Craig, what do you have for us?
Thank you. So these slides follow the audit report, which you previously adopted. First, I want to say happy birthday. NVRC turned 78 years old yesterday. And if you look on the slide there, you can see a list of the original committees that were created in 1947. I just think it's interesting that most of these have turned into other regional organizations or efforts. And it kind of, to me, it was a good historical note going into our strategic planning process about kind of the leadership roles that we played in the past and how those roles constantly change based on needs and based on what other organizations exist and what their focuses are. And so it's always good to take stock, and that's what this strategic planning process is about. So on the heels of our 78th birthday, we're recognizing the retirements of 2 employees with a combined 75 years of service to NVRC. Kylie Smith and Michelle Simmons are with us tonight, both from our Human Services group. Tylee has worked for NVRC for over 33 years and retired last month. She has been most recently responsible for our CareWare patient database, which coordinates all of the patients enrolled in the Ryan White Part B program, and not just NVRC's patients, but other patients in Northern Virginia. That's a critical database. The quick guide of services that many people have used to get connected to those and other services, and also the Northern Virginia Aging Network. And Michelle Simmons will retire in a couple of weeks after more than 42 years of service to NVRC. And most recently, she's been the special assistant to the executive director, working on a number of special projects. But prior to that was the director of human services. And so she coordinated all of the programs in that area, including Ryan White and HOPWA, Virginia Housing Construction Grants, and lots of other things. You know, it's bittersweet because we always like to celebrate folks who have lived the American dream, had a successful career, and now have the opportunity to enjoy the rest of their lives. But we will also miss them, miss their expertise, miss having them around at the office. And I just want to thank you both for so many years of service. And when I say to NVRC, you know, what we really should be focusing on is to the people of Northern Virginia, and particularly the most vulnerable people in our community. And the work that we do here at MVRC is not always on the front lines. It's not always in the headlines. It's not always recognized when we talk about these programs, but it's the infrastructure that we provide that makes it possible for so many of these programs to work in other places and other organizations and across the region. Michelle and Tylee's work have essentially helped save thousands of lives, helped improve the quality of thousands of lives. And we just want to say congratulations and thank you.
Yeah, please. We need you to come to the front. You can't just stand and sit down. We are,
Donzel will snap a photo and please feel free to say anything you'd like.
we are so thankful for your service. Thank you so much. And did he tell you you really can't go? You could really leave. Thank you so much. Appreciate Tylee. You are wonderful. Thank you so much for all things. Please. We want to hear your words of wisdom.
My words of wisdom, don't ever take a 30-day, no, a half-time, 3-month temporary job. That's how it all started. And I've had several careers over the years with NVRC as funding has come and gone, but it's been a wonderful place to work. You guys have and your predecessors have supported us so greatly, and we do appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity to be of service to our region.
Michelle.
Well, I started on a 6-month temporary assignment, so yeah, there's a pattern here. Yes. The thing that I've always enjoyed about NVRC has been the ability to learn and do different things. I watched my husband in a federal career. He had a very, very narrow scope of activities that he could work on. And here, you know, it's like, let's try this. Let's try this. Do you know how to do that? No, but we'll learn it. So I've always enjoyed being able to do a full job, a different job, and I hope a useful job. And I appreciate seeing the leadership of the region in action.
Yeah.
Every Thursday night, every once a month.
Once a month.
Thursday. Yeah.
We
I'd have to find
we
something
just
new.
follow the leaders. That's what we do. We follow them. But we appreciate all that you've done for our communities here in Northern Virginia. And we appreciate, it takes a special heart to be anywhere for 30+ years. So thank you so much, Michelle, on behalf of NVRC and Tylee.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you both. Yeah, ladies, gentlemen,
Thank you.
please.
Next, want to acknowledge the housing work session that we had on November 14th. Many of you were able to participate. We got really overwhelmingly positive feedback. It was an experiment in how we do these work sessions for our strategic planning process. We had a lot of great energy. We had, I believe, 10 of the 13 localities represented there, elected officials, staff, NVRC staff. And we recorded pages and pages of ideas for ways that NVRC can participate in the region's housing work, how we could be helpful to member localities in the area of housing. So I'm going to be discussing this with the CAOs next week to talk about kind of what resonates with them and how what opportunities they think their staff may have to help us get some of these ideas off the ground in the short term. Most of these ideas will be things that we would need to pursue over the long term by putting them in our strategic plan and in our future budgets. So look for the possibility of some of the low-hanging fruit in the next couple of months, and then some of the bigger items to appear again when we do the commission retreat in May. We're going to have 4 additional formal work sessions, 1 in each of January, February, March, and April, and we need to pick the topics for those. So I'm going to email you each in the next week to ask what topics resonate with you. We've heard a lot of ideas in the conversations I've had over the last few months, but we want to see kind of where you all would like to go. We also need to pick some dates, so I'll be asking you what days or times you would prefer for those work sessions. Any questions or comments from those who participated in the housing work session? Okay.
It was a great one.
Thank you.
It was, yeah.
Thanks. Next, I want to highlight the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail brochure update and tourism map update that Rebecca Murphy and Jill Caniff have put together recently. You can see a screenshot of both of them here, and I think the actual brochures are over there by the stack of agendas, and the tourism map you can access at potomachheritagenova.com. If you just look at that screenshot, you can see all of these different points of interest. So as you're going up along the trail, rolling or strolling, you can stop at breweries or shops or hotels or whatever else you might need to find along the trail. Hope you'll check those out and please spread the word. This is great material for your newsletters and your social media. Next, I want to highlight the federal grant that Nora Jackson helped NVRC obtain to expand the precipitation monitoring platform that we lead. And in particular, we were able to get 12 weather station packages and 8 rain gauges for Prince William County, valued at just under $40,000 as part of that grant. So this helps bolster the regional network that connects to our work on flood mitigation, resiliency planning, and other efforts. Next, Jill had the opportunity to speak to the brand new Manassas Housing Advisory Board, gave a presentation on the population trends that she studies, and we are very pleased to see Manassas formalizing that effort and happy to support them with our data products. Next, yesterday, we co-hosted a data center heat reuse and district energy workshop. District energy is where one energy plant supplies heating and cooling, et cetera, to a variety of buildings. So you kind of think of it like a neighborhood energy approach. We co-hosted this with some of the other leaders on this topic at the George Mason campus in Manassas. The feedback we've already received in the last 24 hours has been overwhelmingly positive, and congratulations to Dale Medeiros on our team who put that together along with his colleagues at these other organizations. We were at GIS Day events in Fairfax County and George Mason. Jill displayed some of our products and talked about the work that we do, including the trail map that I just mentioned, as well as our flood map, our federal employment map, our solar rooftop map. Back on the net metering resolution that we adopted, NVRC has been a leader in solarization through our Solarize program and also through our solar map. And so a lot of that work comes from the GIS side. And then next, we want to congratulate Commissioner Reed, who I'm sorry couldn't be here, but please relay our congratulations to her on her election last week as the next corporate president of COG. She was elected at the annual meeting, and then at the January meeting next month, they will elect their board officers, including the board chair currently held by Commissioner Lusk. So I think Catherine's term may have started already, or maybe just about to start, maybe January 1st. And then Rodney's will be ending next month. Finally, at that annual meeting, Bob Lazar received COG's annual Ronald F. Kirby Award for Collaborative Leadership, which is the award given to a non-elected official for regional collaboration. And he was presented with that award by Commissioner Lusk, who's the board chair at COG, which I thought was a kind of a special coming full circle. So congratulations to Catherine and to Bob for their involvement in COG. The last part of my report are the financial summaries for October and November. We did not meet in November, so that's why we have 2 months of reports here to show you. There's not a lot to say. Keep in mind that even though these reports are sort of written from the perspective that revenues and expenses happen 1/12 every month, that's not actually how real life works. So whenever you have a one-time payment or a one-time revenue, it's going to look a little bit higher or lower than what you might expect. So in this case, we had our annual payment for the dues for the Virginia Association of Planning District Commissions. We had a retirement leave payout, and we also had a delay in our ability to get reimbursements from the military during the shutdown for the work that we do with them. And so all of these are really self-correcting blips and nothing to be concerned about. With that, I would be happy to answer questions. I want to thank you all again for your support during my first 100 days, which ended this week. And I've been able to sit down and have one-on-one discussions with almost all 55 employees, commissioners, and CAOs in our region, which has been a really great experience and is very, very helpful to me. So I thank you again for making that time. I wish you all a very safe and happy holidays.
Awesome.
Thanks.
What a great story you've told.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Next, we'll move forward and adopt our, it's the vice chair's report. I can go after that. Let's adopt the minutes for October 2025. Can I entertain a motion, please?
Second.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Are there any questions? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now I'll do my report. I don't have much, of course. I just want to ask you to please keep our very own little Teddy in your thoughts and your prayers. I didn't hear from Matt. Did you hear anything from Matt? So just keep him in your thoughts. And Matt as well, being the big dad that he is.
He had a minor procedure today. For those of you who didn't see Matt's emails, it's not anything we expect to be concerned about.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, so nothing serious. I know I was talking slow, I'm sorry. But anyway, so wanna also again congratulate Tylee and Michelle for the grand work that you've done for us. And then additionally, I just wanted to thank you for your thoughts and prayers for me and the loss of my mom. I've gotten a lot of text messages from all of you, and I really, really do appreciate that. But with that, on a lighter note, just want to say happy holidays to the NVRC staff.
Oh, thank you.
There you go. And that is all that I really have in my report. Anything additional before we close out? Any other matters? Mr. Peterson, thank you so much for joining us this evening. We appreciate you having dinner with us. Yeah?
Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Anything else? With that, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Happy holidays.
Thank you. Please take a look at the flyer.